Realize you really have to write every day. If you don't, you get out of even if it's just a weekend, you get totally out of the story. And then when Monday comes around, you sit down and you think like, who, where was I? Who are these people? Like you're totally out of the story now, and it gets so difficult to.
Hi everyone, it's Samantha Tennant and welcome to another Fresh Fiction Video Book Club. We are in the midst of our Adventure Month, and we have a great author tonight to talk to us about the adventure that she put onto the page, Work in Progress, and it is author Kat McKenzie. Kat, it's so good to see you. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much. I really enjoyed just listening to everyone talking about all the books that they loved and where they
And
want to
that's
go on their next adventure.
exactly right. That's our intro always of what are we reading, watching, listening to, because we can all get ideas. But we also have
Mhm.
our bonus question of that's tied to the book. And of course, with your book, it was all around going on this literary book tour.
Mhm.
And it's okay, where do we all want? There's so many different choices. And this is where I want to pick your brain a little bit of what was the inspiration for you behind this book?
Um, I was feeling a little, I was going through a transitional phase in my life, and I was feeling a little trapped. And I took my characters where I wanted to go. I threw in all the fun things I wanted to do, and I love books and I love road trips, and I it's a love letter to the UK. I used to live there for about 8 years. So yeah, that's where the inspiration came from. I just built one thing that I loved at a time and threw it all in.
Did you always want to be a writer? Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you get to this point?
Um, in a way, I always wanted to be a writer, but in the way that people have these dream jobs that they never actually think they would be able to achieve. So I wanted to be a writer in the same way other people want to be astronauts or movie stars. And I used to be an anthropologist and I was an environmentalist for many years. And then, as I said, I was having just some life problems or difficulties, separations, job questions. And I thought, what do I want to do with myself? I started to reassess and thought, what do I want to do with my life? What would be the thing that would make me really happy? I was already in the career that I had studied for, but I thought if I could do something really exciting, what would it be? And I started writing for NaNoWriMo, which I never finished. But I ended up writing this instead to take a break. And yeah. So
Then
I
what was
haven't,
the stage
I,
of writing that to getting it published if this was really your first foray then?
yeah, this was the first thing I ever finished. And I didn't really write it for publication. I didn't intend to publish, and I didn't think that I'd find an agent who wanted to. It straddles genres. It's a quirky one. It has a lot of quirky humor. It's half romance and half women's fiction, so it doesn't really fit the bill. And I didn't expect to be able to find a home for it. Yeah, all of that has been a remarkable surprise for me.
You're right. This book does kind of straddle the different genres. You've got the women fiction elements where, for me, it's that she was discovering herself and the journey, not the
Mhm.
literal journey that Alice was on, but that self-discovery of where she was wanting to go. Now, of course, the cast of characters, but then the rom-com elements of the relationship between Alice and Robbie. Was that something, did you find difficulties in bridging those two, or was it all fairly natural as you were putting the story together?
It was totally unintended. So I had no difficulty because I didn't have a plan to do that. I think I just wrote what I wanted to read and what I needed at the time. It was almost a cathartic thing for me. And yeah, I think I want to say it's 51% women's fiction and 49% rom-com because I think the goal of the story is Alice's journey. And yeah, we can see that in a few places in the book that I always try to come back to that. Even at the end where there's a big romantic moment, of course, because it's a romance. So everyone already no spoilers. Everyone knows it has an HEA, but but I think even in the big romantic moments, I always try to bring it back to Alice's journey and what she's discovering about herself. And yeah, I think it grew naturally.
And one of the other things I loved about the story are your supporting cast of characters. And again, letting people know who haven't read the book yet, as she's going on, the trip is not exactly like she was initially expecting it to be. And she finds herself on this trip with an elderly group of ladies who are full of different characters. I mean, what was the inspiration behind those specific characters and their different quirks? Were these based off of people that you knew that you had encountered? Were you creating new elements as you were going through the story of, oh, here's another fun addition that could be to the group?
They created themselves. Originally, as I was forming the novel, I just thought it would be fun and that there would be plenty of opportunities for comedy because I love to write jokes. I love to write comedies. I just thought it would be really fun. And then as I started fleshing the story out and as I began to realize that it was these ladies that were going to teach Alice her life lessons through their own stories and their own histories and pasts, that they all came to life. And they're all fictional, though in my head, they were cast by the famous British actresses, the British dames. So Maggie Smith, rest in peace, and Judi Dench and Helen Mirren. So I had cast them in my head, and they weren't, apart from that, their characters are totally different from the real life actresses, but they're all fictional apart from some things that maybe I included stories. Like there's a bit there's a bit of a comic interlude where the oldest lady on the tour finds a napkin in her bag. Excuse me, a napkin in her bag to wipe her face, and it has an old bread roll or biscuit in it from when she was at dinner. And so as she's wiping her face off, it's just crumbling everywhere, and they're in a stately home and on a tour. And so now they've got like biscuits all over the place. And this is something that my great grandmother who lived to 103 used to always keep. If she was at a lunch or a dinner and there was some bread there, she'd wrap it up in a napkin and put it in her purse and then forget about it. It did happen where she was wiping her face and it just crumbled all over the place. So there are little stories like that that I wove into the narrative that were real. And of course, that's just the side characters. There are also things in the story and analysis journey that have happened to me when I travel. And so I added those into the characters.
And I think that was also what resonated so much for me, was because I just got back from a large overseas trip and it was part of a tour group. And there's so many, that's become such a big aspect of these trips, right? Is who else is on that tour group with you? And as you are going through some of these experiences, and these are not things that would ever happen to you in your normal day-to-day at home element, but it just makes those trips even more complete. And it's those different characteristics. How do those things come to you when you're writing? Are you picturing the characters? Are you, like you said, you were imagining a lot of the grand dames of English film, but are they like talking to you in your head? Are you hearing it, seeing it as a movie? Are you just hearing voices? What's that translation?
That's a very good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that, and I've never even thought about it. I don't know. I think my characters in this book are very hard boiled, and I think they've got a lot of personality, and so it just comes out when I'm. I don't know how to put it. Just naturally, you know, it comes out in the dialogue. And of course, like I said, I'm always looking for jokes. So I'm always thinking, what would Berta say that would be really funny here? Or what could Agatha say that would be really snarky? And I could build the dialogue around that.
What was your writing process then? Since this was really the first story, were you writing it as the story was evolving? Did you need to, like you said, go back and add some of that banter? Were you doing different scenes at a time and jumping around?
Yeah, I definitely, because this is my first one, it went through a lot of edits. The first time I wrote I had my storyline. I knew where it was going. But in terms of the character arcs and in terms of where the story would end, I didn't even really know where the bus tour was going to go. Because I lived in the UK and know it well, a lot of these places are places that I absolutely adore. And so because it was a literary bus tour, I could then think about, all right, well, what authors are from, who's writing about Oxford or in Oxford, and then I could use that with my story. And the story, like I said, that I think the grand framework was there, but I plan a lot more carefully now. And at the time, I just was pantsing a lot. I was just writing as it came. And again, I never really intended to publish this. So I was just having fun. And then later, I was tightening things up or adding things in. And I do write chronologically. Like I need to go from the beginning of the story. I can't really just write something later and then piece it in. And sometimes I can move things around afterward, but I can't. I know some writers are really good at writing scenes and then piecing them together. But I find that for me, especially in romance, when you have two characters that are bouncing off of each other in a way and bantering, their relationship is developing from scene to scene. And oftentimes some of that isn't planned. I might be planning to have a funny scene, and by the end of it, it's snarkier than I had intended, or she's angrier than I had intended, or she's having more fun than she expected, or something. So sometimes it takes its own route, and it's important to me that I start at the beginning and finish at the end because that development is not it gets really complicated if I start moving things around, because now she likes him here, but now if I'm going to move it here, she doesn't like him at the beginning. So it gets messy.
Did you find that your typical writing day changed as you were working on this? Because it sounds like it was initially fun, what if, and then as it started evolving, did you find you were devoting more time to it? Did you have to carve out separate time?
Yeah,
Or what do you figure out?
this one took a little while. Like I definitely started and stopped, and I didn't realize at the time. Now that I'm a lot more serious about my writing, I realize you really have to write every day. If you don't, you get out of even if it's just a weekend, you get totally out of the story. And then when Monday comes around, you sit down and you think like, who where was I? Who are these people? Like you're totally out of the story now, and it gets so difficult to start moving again. So I feel like I'm a lot better at keeping the story, keeping my head in the story and keeping the story going even just a little bit every day. But back then I didn't know that. And so sometimes I'd take a few months off, or I went to Ireland for 3 or 4 months and I was supposed to be writing every day. I don't think I even wrote once. There were huge chunks of time where I didn't do any writing, and then would come back and go like, how am I supposed to finish this thing? Oh my gosh, I don't know. So so it took a while, and now I'm a lot more organized with my writing, and I have to start in the morning, even though I'm a night person. If I don't start in the morning, the whole day is shot. And I do 25-minute writing sprints, and so things are more structured now, and the end result is also more structured, which is a good thing. So less editing, hopefully.
When you were saying first getting into this, it was the pie in the sky type, what would you do type element. Having that image in mind, what was the biggest surprise for you as you were actually writing the book, since this was your first one?
The biggest surprise writing. There were lots of surprises after writing. I landed an incredible agent that I never dreamt I would get, and an incredible editor at an incredible imprint for HarperCollins. I'm with Avon. But in the writing process, surprises, I think what surprised me most is two things. One is that it's such a joy. I can take myself away when I'm writing, and I can be somewhere else, and I can be someone else, and that in itself can be such a joy. I don't know. It's almost like traveling. And the other thing that was a surprise was that I could make myself laugh or surprise myself. Like I'd write something and then I'd read it again later when I was editing, or a month later when I went back, and I would have totally forgotten about those jokes and then be delighted by them. Or it would be the opposite. I'd be like, what the heck? This isn't funny at all. Oh my God. I think the most interesting thing is every time you read, you're in a different mindset, and the things that you take away from it are totally different. And sometimes you love it, and sometimes you hate it.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of times people say that you should go back and read certain books at different periods of your life, right? Because you
Absolutely.
do experience a different set of emotions or interpretation. But one thing I'm curious about, from what you were just saying, when you were writing it, it was almost like you were participating in the adventure. And so with that, I know how I have that as a reader, and how I see things in my brain as to, okay, am I identifying with one of the characters, or am I just viewing it? How is that for you then as a writer when you're saying that you're getting to experience that adventure? Are you picturing yourself as Alice when you're writing that? Are you just watching Alice and Robbie and the other characters? Is it again like the movie, or are you like the main character of the movie and the book, and you're just calling them by a different name?
It's me. I think I feel like I'm in there, but I'm not the character, because the way I would respond to different, for instance, Alice is very type A. She loves to plan. She's very organized. She gets anxiety. None of these things are like me. So the way that I would respond in a situation, especially because I love to travel. It's my passion, and I travel a lot. And if you like to travel, you realize that things go wrong, horribly wrong all the time. And you have to just get like laugh at it, or just go along and be like, let's see what happens. We'll make the best of it. And I tend to be that way. I'm pretty relaxed about things. I usually don't get worked up about too much, but Alice gets worked up easily and easily concerned and worried. And so I think if I were to put myself into that role, I would influence that character far too much. And also, probably all of my characters would be me. They'd all be the same. But I will say, I will confess, though, that I think who I had planned for Alice to be and who she became over time, and by the end of the story, was a lot more like me than I had intended, or at least, if not the structure of her personality, the sound of her voice and the jokes that she makes are more me than I meant them to be. Whether I want it to be me or not, that comes out a little bit.
Kat, I want to switch over to what we call our fresh fiction facts. These are a series of kind of rapid fire questions, answers off the top of your head, and we'll see if we stump you on any of these. Okay?
Oh, Lord, have mercy. I'm nervous. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go with an easy one simply because of the travel element. What
Okay.
would be your dream travel destination?
Oh my God. This is an easy question. You lied. I can't even believe this. No, it's not an easy question at all. I have not yet been to the African continent. I would love to go on safari, but I'm gonna answer, so something more attainable or more on my radar for the next year or two is I really would like to do the Mont Blanc Trail, which is the hiking trail that goes around Italy, France, and Switzerland. Um, and mostly because it sounds wonderful, and like they move your bag for you, and then there's like drinks and food along the way. So, sounds great for me. If you read the book, you'll see it's all about drinks and food. So
Also, the moving of bags, that is a critical aspect, and I am glad I don't have to mess with that when I am with a tour group.
yeah. I love to go hiking and camping, but I don't want to carry a whole bunch of stuff for 110 miles. No.
What is the one thing that you always have to take with you on a trip when you travel?
Oh my goodness. A good book is important. I think the honest answer is a ton of underwear. I don't know why, but
Yes.
I'm packing right now. Actually, I leave for Atlanta tomorrow for the romance book festival in Atlanta called Love Y'all. And I don't know why, but it's always, that just seems like no matter what happens in life, it's important to have clean underwear. And you don't know if you're traveling. If I'm in a hotel, I'm sure it's fine, but sometimes I'm in the rainforest, or I'm in the middle of of the woods, and I need to make sure that I have enough for essentially the whole trip if I can manage.
Yes, I packed twice the amount of underwear I needed on my last trip.
Yeah,
The
it's
clothes, I'm
just
like,
you just
I
have it.
wear a shirt twice, the jeans. I'm like, fine, but I need to have clean underwear. These are
Yeah,
priorities.
exactly. You can wear like the same three outfits for the whole 3 months, but you need to have the clean underwear.
Yes.
I'm sure there was a far more romantic answer to that question, but it's the
These are
real
true
me.
priorities. No, I get it. Okay, other than books, what is something that you own a ridiculous amount of?
Other than books, I gotta say, this is a weird, nerdy answer. I gotta say rocks. I'm super into antiques as well, but I'm super into, I don't know, any kind of fossils, shiny, anything shiny, crystals. I just love them. I don't, I'm very scientific, so I don't believe they have any mystical powers, but I just think they're beautiful, and I've just always been mildly obsessed.
So are these things that you just come across? Or are they ones that you purchase at stores? Are you
Sometimes,
picking them up on your
I'll go
travels?
fossil hunting or looking for gems or whatever, but mostly it'll be like in shops or whatever, and I find pretty ones that I like, and I actually put them like when I'm writing, I light a candle and I have some rocks, and I change them every day so that it's fresh and exciting. So I, I help to change my desk ambiance with these rocks.
Okay, okay, that works definitely. Would you rather go back in time and meet your ancestors or go forward in time and meet your descendants?
I'd like to go back in time. I'm a history reader. I watch everything, any kind of costume drama. I've consumed it all. So yeah, I'd rather go back in time.
Yeah, I'm going to further pinpoint it. How far back would you like to go? What time period?
I want to say I want to go see the dinosaurs, obviously, but that's going to end in tragedy, certain death. The real answer is I'd love to go every era, but probably the Victorian era. I'm very passionate about the Victorian era.
Okay, what was your favorite childhood TV show?
Childhood TV show. I watched one of your interviews, and I should have been prepared for these questions, and I sure wasn't. I didn't plan a thing.
I mix up the questions every single time. Yeah.
Yeah, childhood TV show. I liked anything fantasy. I can I answer movies because I'm trying to think TV show, and I don't.
Oh no, movie
Nothing
would
is
be good
sticking.
too.
But my favorite movies were always Princess Bride, Labyrinth, and The Neverending Story. I all the
Oh yeah.
fantasy ones. I'm a fantasy geek.
Fear of an age. Yes, those are three right there. My growing up years. Yes, yes.
Exactly.
Part of the generation that was scarred by the never-ending story, and
Exactly. Ah, Atreyu.
yes, exactly. Okay,
Let's
well,
see.
honest, what was your favorite field trip when you were a child?
Sorry, what was?
Your favorite, what was your favorite field trip as a child? Did that kind of start your travel bug?
Oh, I don't know. Like for school field trips?
Sure.
If we did any, I remember going to a bread factory. We didn't, sometimes we'd go and see plays, and that was pretty cool. I don't really remember going anywhere fascinating on field trips, if I'm honest. But I did do a graduate degree at Oxford, and the first thing in biodiversity conservation, so in wildlife conservation, and the first thing we did when I met this group of people for this class that was a very intensive course that I was going to be basically living with this family of other students for the whole course. The first place we met was on a field trip, and I feel like just that one year we had field trips almost every month. So it was really cool. Yeah. So I didn't have a lot of exciting field trips as a kid, but as an adult, absolutely.
Yes. And I have to say, having that be your degree in field of study with the wildlife conservation, you have to go on a safari and see everything in its natural habitat.
I absolutely agree. I agree. I need to
That's something you
start
should.
planning.
Yes, definitely. What is your most dog-eared copy of a book? The book that you keep going back to reread, and be it either for research or for pleasure.
I don't reread a whole lot. One of the things that I reread the most is Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. And
Oh.
it's, I don't know why I keep going back. I do. I absolutely love the book, but I think I go back so often because it is so immersive. When you read that book, you are living these beautiful fantasy. It's low fantasy, so it's our world, but she creates these fantasies within our world. And it's so visual. You could see everything. You could see the lighting. You can smell the stuff. Everything is amazing. The way that she writes place is incredible. And so I always love to go back to that one.
Well, it sounds like when you are involved in a story, you are just truly immersed in that. What
Yeah.
is something that will pull you out of the story?
I heard you ask this to other guests. There's not a lot. I think the only thing that would pull me out, probably two things. A bad joke. I mean, pulling me out of a story. Do you mean for the whole permanently or temporarily? Like just a short.
I'll go with temporarily.
Okay, temporarily, a bad joke will make me eye roll if the fan just said, and believe me, I'm sure a lot of my readers are like, this is not my humor at all. They hate it. But I have a particular sense of humor. So if I don't like their jokes, then that pulls me right out. Or if there's something that I find really unbelievable in the story, I'll be like, what's going on here? That kind of pulls me out and I start to question.
Okay, I'm giving you a brand new question I have added to the list then, since you've been
Uh-oh.
looking at some of the other ones. No one else I've asked this to yet. Okay, what is your go-to song to pick if you have to do karaoke?
Oh my gosh, this is a terrible question. It's a great question, but I don't have a good answer for it. I don't have a good answer, but I have a good story. I don't know that I've done karaoke probably 3 times in my whole life, and I love to sing, but it never has really happened, and I can't even remember what I sang. But I do remember this harrowing incident. I was living in Borneo in Indonesia, and I randomly got one of the girls that I think I lived with. I can't remember if she was a girl in my office or I lived with her in the inn where I was staying. It was an inn with a bunch of women basically staying together. And she brought me to karaoke with this like a chieftain, like a king of a Dayak tribe. So this very important person. And I had no idea. So I'm in Indonesia and I'm there with the like trying to already I'm nervous because I don't know this person and I don't know how to sing karaoke. At this point, I don't think I had ever done it in my life. And I'm looking through all the songs and almost all of them are in Bahasa Indonesia, right? We don't have English songs here. And the only one, there were like a few and I didn't know them. And then there was Beyonce. And it was, let me remember, it was Single Ladies. And I was like, okay, I know this song. I don't know it. Like, this isn't my favorite song and I can sing all the words for you, but at least I know the song, at least it's in English. So I picked it. And it was a huge mistake because A, it's fast, and B, I had no idea what I was doing. And it turns out I knew none of the words. And I just made an absolute fool of myself. I was humiliated in front of this king. So, yeah, that was my karaoke story. It
All
gave me
right.
trauma.
As readers and listeners, we always want to know, what are you working on next?
I finished and sent to my editor my book two. Book two. Book one we talked about, that's in the UK, and we do Scotland, England, and Wales. And my second book, which is not a sequel, it's just another story, another standalone, takes place in Ireland, and it's about the annual matchmaking festival, which happens in Ireland every September. And I travel there myself for the research to attend this matchmaking festival. And it's about a mischievous matchmaker, and there is traveling around Ireland on a road trip with a grumpy farmer. So this is completed and I am in the editing process right now, but hopefully we'll be seeing it soon.
And with that, where is the best place for our readers and listeners to keep up with you and find out the exact dates when that book is going to be available?
The best place would be Instagram. I'm a total Instagram newbie. I just made an account a couple of months ago. I'd been dragging my feet for years and years. But there is a Kat McKenzie website that exists, but I don't change it and I'm not sure I know how to. And so I'm not super tech savvy, as you might have noticed. So the place where I'm more active is Instagram.
Okay. You got to get the website under control because people you can hire for stuff like that. So, because as you write more books, you're going to need a website, Kat.
I have to confess that I wasn't going to have one at all. And then two of my best friends who are both indie authors were like, Kat, you got to get this sorted. And I was like, I'm just not going to do it. So they made it for me. and I'm like, well, that's great. Thanks. Thanks, guys. I love that so much. And I don't think I've changed it since then. One day at a time. I'm working hard here.
Okay. We'll give you some time on it then. All right. Kat, thanks for joining us. And readers, if you haven't checked this out yet, be sure and pick up a copy of Work in Progress by Kat McKenzie. And you can stick around for our happy hour where our readers will be able to ask you some additional questions.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here.